But look, at the end of the day, this is really a discussion about ISO and liaison and where GMG and ISO can work, I think, to the benefit of both going forward. So ISO, I'm sure everyone's heard about it. Some of you may, I know some of you are involved in it. It is a global thing. It covers every possible industry. It actually gets into every facet of life that you deal with every day. There's something you're doing, driving, walking, eating, or using has an ISO standard associated with it. That is one of its benefits. It's globally regarded, it's globally supported, but my goodness, it's a very complicated animal. It does have its challenges. In some cases, that's things like to be involved in an ISO working group or subcommittee, you need to be in the room via accreditation by a national standards body. That's not necessarily hard to do, but it is a level of complexity, and you've got to go through a little bit of a process to get there. And I think that actually does limit some of the participation that the whole process would benefit from. There's a lot of really smart, really experienced people that look at that and go, oh my goodness, I can't do that, or I don't know how to do it. But at the end of the day, that's ISO. Subcommittee or TC82 and then Subcommittee 8. It's a quite a complex set of organizations. It's a very large working area. It's largely focused around this automated autonomous processes, tech, equipment, systems, and every one of those words all connect to each other and outside of that subcommittee area. So it is a tentacular piece of work, and it sort of works by breaking things down into digestible chunks, but obviously the further you break it down, the more complexity there is in interaction. So next slide, please. It is, the ISO is a great forum for bringing people together, whether it's suppliers, operators, really technical people, really operations people. Does provide a format to do that. GMG has the challenges around antitrust and those sorts of things, as do they, but it's a unique opportunity to get things together. Where things get interesting is this liaison organization concept, which I think has many benefits, but the key one from our end of view is it actually allows us to deepen the pool of subject matter expertise, and I'll add also broaden it. So some of these are really, really technical discussions, and my eyes glaze over and I'm not smart enough. Having said that, we'll all likely at some point be touched by the outcomes of these things and the value of having people who will ultimately be using these tools or systems on the ground to bring a non-detailed technical perspective to the discussion is enormously valuable. So some of them we do want to get into the technical. Some of them I think we just want the voice of reason. That's probably annoy somebody by saying that, but the opportunity of the liaison is that we don't have to go through all of that malarkey of international and national standards organizations. The downside, if indeed we see it that way, and I don't think it is that the liaison organizations and attendees don't actually have a voting right. Now, having said that, there are people on this call and in GMG who are part of the ISO through those accredited organizations, and in many cases, I think the real opportunity for us is to use the backup and the support team of the GMG pool to really help inform those who do have a vote. Obviously, you can contribute to the meetings and that will sway opinion one way or the other. When it actually comes to the vote, we can actually force multiply that vote by bringing the team in behind us. So next slide, please. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of benefits. I think I'm not going to read this in detail. I think we're sharing these slides after, if not before. So look, at the end of the day, there's all the things I talked to earlier. There's connections outside of the TC82 space, which might also be interesting. But building this collaboration between the two entities, I think, is actually to the benefit of both. It'll allow a clearer definition of what work each does, because there's definitely some confusion. What's a standard, what's a guideline? The guidelines should both support and inform the standards, and it works both ways. So if we get involved in this, I think everyone comes out a winner. Next one, thanks, Heather. So that is a very boiled down list of topics. Every one of those, TC23 subcommittee, they all have lots of detail behind them. There's preliminary work instructions. The whole language of ISO is actually quite challenging in itself. I think the bottom line is there's a lot of work, there's a lot of detail. Some people are probably across some of these, and you can see just looking at them, the points of contact with the GMG work, which is where I think this real opportunity to, you know, improve both ends of the spectrum probably exists. So there's a lot more detail available than this. There's a couple more levels of detail of summary. Again, I'm going to thank Tim for putting a lot of that work together. I think we can probably share some of that. And look, if you want to go in and dig into this in the ISO websites, there's a plethora of information there too. So last one, I think, Heather. Oh no, there's more to come. There you go. It's not just what we've got, there's more coming. Now we'll roll on. Now I think it's the last one, Heather. My 2 minutes to spare. So look, again, we're not going to solve this here. We don't necessarily want to be into every piece of work. There's a lot of stuff there which is we just want to have a watching brief on and being aware of it and keeping it connected. That's healthy, but we don't have to get in great detail. And frankly, even the GMG and individuals don't have the resources to do that. Having said that, there are a couple which we absolutely need to be involved in, both to direct and support. So I think what we need to do is have a look at that list, have a look at where the connections and what the leverage is, and then prioritize. Then look for amongst the GMG group and everyone on this call and people you know, who is a good fit for, who is interested in being part of those pieces of work. That might ultimately spawn guidelines in GMG, or we can use the guideline information we have to focus and direct the ISO work. So that's it from me.